The Israelis bombed Rafah during the Super Bowl, killing at least 62 people as part of their an assault to release 2 hostages. They're killing civilians, many civilians, to rescue their civilians, essentially.
Although, let's just be clear. I don't even want to say that that's true, because when were the majority of the hostages released, Sam?
The majority of the hostages, in fact, those are the only 2 hostages I am aware of that have been actually rescued by Israel. There may have been one other, but but every other hostage that has been released came in the course of a ceasefire.
Exactly.
And
so the point is just like this is it's almost a mockery justification for the mass killing that they want to inflict on Palestinians. Because if they really cared about the hostages, they probably wouldn't be carpet bombing the place where the hostages are. And so, like, I will borrow from what that family of that hostage member said on Israeli TV, that this is more of the Hannibal directive than it is an earnest desire to help the hostages.
If it's 2 that they've saved, they've killed more than they've saved by far.
And we have Joe Biden, who really went on a limb the other day and said that the Israelis their response has been over the top.
Like Christmas decorations, like, you know, when people do too many blow up
that's over the top.
Santas, it's just a little over the top.
Sometimes when my kids are being a little bit too dramatic, that they don't want to eat a certain food, I say, you're being a little over the top. And or when, you know, folks at your table are committing genocide, and you say you're being a little over the top.
A little over the top.
And he's getting some credit, I guess, in the news media to some extent, for saying, like, he finally said it was over the top. And here he is in a press conference, a joint press conference with King Abdullah of Jordan. And
he just spoke, right? But then he hands off to Abdullah. And what the king does here, like, I guess the king of Jordan is kind of representing the Palestinian interest to the public in English, which I find to be a bizarre choice. But he says things here that are directly contradictory to U.S. policy, and Biden just stands behind him. I'm not sure what the strategy is here. I really want your take.
I have to think, well, let's listen to this, but I suspect this is more about Jordan and some concerns that may exist in Jordan on some level than anything else. I think this is, you know, Biden's gift to King Abdullah, which is you can come to the White House.
Look strong.
You can look strong. And make it look like you are arguing with the president of the United States, so that the Palestinians that live in Jordan and that sentiment on the street doesn't start taking this out on you, because this whole region has become a powder keg because the Biden administration has given basically carte blanche to the Israelis. Listen.
Sorry. Mr. President, thank you for your gracious hospitality accorded to me and my delegation today. My visit today carries an added meaning, as our countries this year mark 75 years of exemplary strategic partnership. However, we had hoped we would be marking this major milestone during better circumstances in my region and the world. Unfortunately, one of the most devastating wars in recent history continues to unfold in Gaza as we speak. Nearly 100,000 people have been killed, injured, or are missing. The majority are women and children. We cannot afford an Israeli attack on Rafah. It is certain to produce another humanitarian catastrophe. The situation is already unbearable for over 1 million people who have been pushed into Rafah since the war started. We cannot stand by and let this continue. We need a lasting ceasefire now. This war must end. We must urgently and immediately work to ensure the sustainable delivery of sufficient aid to Gaza through all possible entry points and mechanisms. And I thank you, Mr. President, for your support on this. Restrictions on vital relief aid and medical items are leading to inhumane conditions. No other UN agency can do what UNRWA is doing in helping the people of Gaza through this humanitarian catastrophe. Its work in other areas of operation, especially in Jordan, where 2.3 million are registered, is also vital. It is imperative that UNRWA continues to receive the support it needs to carry out its mandate. The potential threat of Palestinian displacement beyond the borders of Gaza and the West Bank is something we view with extreme concern and cannot be allowed. At the same time, we must not ignore the situation in the West Bank and in the holy sites in Jerusalem. Nearly 400 Palestinians have been killed in the West Bank since October 7th, including almost 100 children and over 4,000 injured.
Yeah. So that was, I think, the gist of it. But he's, with Biden in right behind him, is speaking about UNRWA and its critical role that it plays in being one of the only organizations that provides shelter, medical care, just vital necessities for people in Gaza right now. And particularly as we see the escalation of right-wing Israeli activists blocking aid trucks with the basically tacit consent of the IDF from coming in to Gaza. So, like, you know, I just don't understand, and I really am curious because I saw this this morning and wanted your take on what the hell Biden is doing here, because these leaks to the press every day about how Biden is concerned and Biden's unhappy. Oh, and did you hear he called Netanyahu an asshole?
For months now, though.
A few times behind the scenes. And yet the situation continues to deteriorate to the point where we're at the risk of thousands and thousands more of starving to death. Children having lifelong, they will have lifelong issues from malnutrition at this point. It makes him look weak. Like, we're, you know, in the same way we're talking about his triangulation on the border, right? Where he talks about how the border's out of control and that we wanted to pass this bill, but Trump wouldn't let it happen. And Trump's the guy who's saying that the border is out of control. Well, it's like the average voter is going to say, well, Biden, you do something about it. And then when everyone's seeing this humanitarian catastrophe, all of this death in Gaza, and he trots out the king of Jordan to say what we all know, and he says things that are contradictory to Biden's actions, like UNRWA being essential and Biden defunding UNRWA, and this bill that just passed in the Senate, the supplemental aid, also defunding UNRWA. What is the strategy? Because he's afraid of hearing of Netanyahu hearing the word ceasefire come out of his mouth. So Jordan, the king of Jordan's got to say it. I don't understand what he thinks he can do. Like, I don't understand how much he can abdicate his duty at the bully pulpit, honestly, because he thinks he can say one thing in public and another thing in private to Netanyahu and then have these leaks come out to the American people. No, dude, you just look like a weak, ineffective leader more than anything.
First off, I'm not sure that this supplemental bill defunds UNRWA. I know that the last one did. I don't know if this one does. I haven't.
I saw Prem Talker from The Intercept tweet about it this morning.
Oh, so he said it was? Okay.
But I haven't verified it outside.
The only thing I can imagine is this is a way of like trying to that Abdullah needed to do this because he needed to make it clear to a domestic audience that he was pressing the case even at the White House. It is.
You can't go to the White House without doing something like that, or people are going to get upset.
Without a doubt, there's no way that they didn't know that, and there's no way they didn't get the okay from the White House for him to do that. The reason why Biden does this is because you could look at these things and say, oh, Biden is on the verge of shutting down support for Israel. That's what these all are. These are all tea leaves. That you read the tea leaves. He's about to shut down support, and what that does is it gives Biden another couple of days. Like, that's basically, this is what they did in the Iraq War, too. It was always like, you know what? We're 6 months away.
Yeah.
That was the Friedman unit, or an FU. And I'm quite convinced that their strategy in making these leaks about how Biden is upset with is to basically make it seem like that it is imminent that the U.S., the administration, is going to use any tiny iota of its rather large leverage that it has with Israel. And I think that's just the idea. It is sort of like Lucy and the football type of situation. And
it's moronic.
Well, it doesn't work with people who are paying attention.
Yeah.
But
not meant to.
It is not meant to. It is meant to work with people who vaguely hear about this conflict, which is...
But if they vaguely hear about it, then why not take strong action? Because if they're low information voters, why not err on the side of looking like a strong leader than looking like somebody who needs to, have these proxies make your case?
It doesn't. I just don't think that the level of engagement from your average voter, at least this is their perspective, and I think there's probably some truth to that.
I'm sure.
It's just where they just don't even make that calculation.
Yeah, the reliance on it's complicated.
100%.
But the upside of looking strong is better than for a low information voter, in my opinion. And just from a purely cynical perspective, the upside of looking strong versus...
But you're assuming that it makes him look weak to a low information voter. And my point is, no, it makes him look like he's being thoughtful, and that he is not an ideologue, and that he's weighing things, he's being judicious, that there are forces that are out of his control. And then, I already think that we've gone further in just those 3 sentences than your average person who doesn't follow these things sort of interprets. That, I mean, that's just my sense.
Yeah, I mean, I guess. Yeah.
He's also a committed Zionist, so he can't look strong in that way.
It's ideological. I know. It's just, for me, you can, if we're battling over the low information voter, you can look thoughtful and then also still not alienate, the 50% of Democrats that now think that Israel is committing a genocide. There's a way, and I know the Democrats, they might need to reinvent the wheel for a second, but there's a way to do politics where you're not literally kicking your base in the teeth and saying, screw you.
That is that is a separate calculation than they're making. But and I agree with you that I don't think it's good politics, but that's what their theory is. That's the only explanation I have, aside from the fact that Biden really wants to do this, and again, this is a sort of some form of triangulation to make it seem like he's not really into doing it, but it's one of those things that just has to happen. And, he's hearing both sides. That's why he has Abdullah there. And I mean, that's the only thing I can think of that makes any sense.
Actions speak louder than words, or hand wringing, and whether we're on a hand wringing scale of 2 as we were in November, or we're now hand wringing at a full 10, it's still just hand wringing.
We'll get to just hand wringing in a moment when we talk about Chris Van Hollen.